Let's dive into the rookies before we wrap up here. So the presumption has been, and we'll get into the other guys. The presumption has been that Cam Ward from Miami and Shadeur Sanders from Colorado are at the top of the class. What's your initial impressions on those two?
Yeah, I've watched them. I like them. I think they're both good college players, no doubt about it. The one thing that makes me, when I watch them, I kind of see a similar type skill set, similar type player. They're not elite athletes. They're not going to pull the ball down and run like Jaden Daniels or Lamar Jackson. They can make all the throws, maybe not as well as some of the guys that were in last year's rookie class. I just don't see them being those high of picks. You know what I mean? Like first, second, third. This isn't Caleb Williams. This isn't Drake May. This isn't Jaden Daniels. I think those guys were all justifiable for those picks, and obviously to quarterback needy teams. But it's pretty telling to me when and you deal with this side of the media better than me. But like when the Titans say we're going to draft the best available player, that's kind of and they need a quarterback just as much as everybody else. When they say that, it's kind of telling to me like, well, we don't want to be forced to take one of these guys as number one overall pick because maybe we don't value them as that number one pick.
One thing I have heard, like from a bunch of teams, is that maybe Cam has some ceiling that Shadeur doesn't have, and that like the physical ability, you see it. You know, you might have to get through a lot of tape to get there, but you see these flashes from Cam, where Shadeur maybe a little bit more ordinary from an arm strength standpoint, not a great athlete. Do you see that too with Cam, where you see like these sort of flashes that like, whoa, like there is something there?
Yeah, there's been a few seam throws that I've seen. To me, they like I said, they can make all the throws. They're very good, like different levels of throws, whether it's on the line, maybe kind of a mid-range ball. They both throw really good deep balls. They have enough athletic ability to throw on the run, but the one thing that I kept seeing is they almost want to get out of the pocket. It's
Yeah.
like we're gonna look and then I don't feel good about that. Let me move because it and playing quarterback, like when you get out of the pocket, if you have a clear view, you don't have to read anything. You're just looking and you're seeing. It's like playing backyard football, right? Who gets open? Can I make the throw? No problem. And the one thing I would say is because they're not so talented when it comes to athleticism, I get worried when they get to that next level. Miles Garrett's gonna run them down. I mean, they're just not. They don't have that speed to get away, and they also aren't that big. It's not like they're the size of Josh Allen or Drake May, where they're going to be able to use some strength to their ability as well. So I think that they're capable of being starting NFL quarterbacks. But are they worthy of that high of a pick? And this is for these teams who are QB needy. We just went over the free agent. There's not a lot of options, right?
Yeah.
So at some point, you got to do something. And you just hope that you're not backed into a corner saying, all right, we're going to take this guy and hope for the best.
So I think that's why like these teams are being really aggressive with the 30 visits. Like, so Shadeur, I believe, is with the Titans on Monday, and I think Cam is there on Friday. The Giants are doing 30 visits this week with the quarterbacks. The Browns are having Shadeur in today, Cam in tomorrow, and I think that's part of it. Like, I think part of it is like we need to get an assessment. We need to try to get as much of our file closed on the rookies before we decide how we're going to approach the veteran market next week. You know, I think you usually see the 30 visits way later in the process. No, a lot of them are usually in April. But I think you see like the quarterback needy teams doing that now because they're trying to get in front of it. All right. So like, what do you see from the rest of the class? Because I do think that's going to be part of the equation for these teams too. You know, I think like for a lot of these teams, it's going to be like, well, what's the difference between the guy we get at 3 and 35, right? Like, or 35 and 70. And there is some depth. Like I don't, again, like the top of the class isn't what it was last year. I don't think anybody would dispute that. I think all three guys you named, I feel pretty strongly about this. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels would all be the number one overall pick if they were in this year's class.
Yeah, maybe even. I mean, this is a question I was asked the other day. Would you take Bo Nix over these guys? And obviously hindsight is 2020. But yeah, I would say at this if I knew. And like you can't.
But that's a good example of how important fit is too, right?
Right. Yeah. But he was a good fit for Sean Payton's system, and he continued to grow, and the team was decent around him, and you saw him, flourish as the year went on.
Okay, so who else do you like then? Like when you look at the rest of the crop, who else do you like?
I like Jackson Dart. I know that he's kind of vying for maybe that second spot, but to your point, like is the guy at 2 or 3 that much different at 30? And to me, I don't. There's not like anything that jumps off tape that there's this wide gap. At least in my opinion, I don't. The one thing I see of Jackson Dart is he wants to throw from the pocket. There's a lot of times where he's hanging in there, he's taking hits, and those guys, the other guys do. I mean, Shadeur's offensive line was not great,
So
but
can I jump? I want to ask you about this specifically because I thought this was really interesting. Someone from a team said to me, "You see Shadeur and Cam going backwards a lot,
he's
and you see
pushing up.
Jackson Dart going
Right.
forwards."
And that's how I was ingrained to play quarterback. So that usually catches my eye a little bit because
Yeah,
if I ever went out of the back of the pocket, usually Bill was throwing like his binder at me and being like, "That's not going to work in the NFL. Like you can't do that." Some of these guys are obviously more athletic than me, but I do see that from Jackson Dart and where he drops back and he starts to push up. And these other guys, the further back you go, that's danger zone, man. Because I don't care how good your left tackle is. I always tell this story when I played in Cleveland. Joe Thomas, Hall of Fame left tackle, he would always tell me, if your back foot is no deeper than 10, I got you. If you go back past 10 yards, you're on your own. So that's coming from a Hall of Fame left
left
tackle
tackle.
because these guys on the edge in the NFL are absolute freaks. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter. They will get to that point. And so the one thing that I did like, and it's funny you say that there's some other people seeing this, he does push up in the pocket. He pushes up to throw, and then he can pull it down and run. And as I said, I hold Josh Allen in high regard. I think Jackson Dart kind of plays the game in this. I'm not saying he's the same player as Josh Allen, but he plays a very similar game where he'll pull the ball down and run. He has some thickness to him, I would say, where he can
he's a
handle
bigger
some
kid.
hits.
Yeah, when I saw
Yeah,
him in person at the Senior Bowl, like I was like, wow, like he
yeah.
actually looks like he's
You could
like
see that from the combine video when he's
yeah,
out there throwing. I thought he was very smooth and I don't put too much into the combine because it's a very limited amount of throws, but he looked confident. He looked smooth throwing to guys that he's never thrown before. And then I told you this on the phone yesterday, and I only say this because I watched him a little bit more live, and then now going back and watching it more. But Will Howard, I mean, to me, I thought this guy was going to be like a running quarterback that came from K-State. And I get it. He has some elite talent to throw the ball to. But you talk about that kind of it factor. When it mattered most, he played his best football. When it came down the stretch, and I know you're a big Ohio State fan, so you could back me up on this. When it came down to it, he became one of their best players. And he's a
yeah.
big, strong guy. He can run the football. Like I said, came from K-State. Obviously, he knows how to run the football at the quarterback position, but made some big time throws. You could see the confidence grow, and to me, and I don't know the kid, you may know him better than me, but he kind of comes off as that humble leader.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like his demeanor. I like his attitude. You'd see him in the post game press conferences. He'd give praise his teammates. To me, I just, it's one of those feelings I get in a guy. Now, I don't know if you want to draft him and plug him in as a starter day one, but if you're a team like Cleveland and you get Kirk Cousins, and now you don't feel the pressure to draft a Shadeur or a Cam Ward, and he falls to you in the second or third round, and he's already you got the Ohio State fans there anyways. I think those people would love it.
I think he's got a chance. I don't know how good he's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's the kind of guy who's going to last in the league for a long time.
Yeah.
Like I just think he's going to be like whether it's a backup or a starter. And you know this, like I always say this, like when I'm around young players, I was around a quarterback at the combine, like I'm out to dinner one of the nights, and I said to him, I'm like, you should look at Josh McCown. I'm like because they're it's interesting. I think Josh McCown made like an extra $30 million just because he's a good guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there was a point where he was out of the league. I think it was in like 11 or 12, and he came back. That was when Cutler was there in Chicago, and he like just like the team wanted him around,
Mm-hmm.
and then he did a good job and when he came in and played. And I think it was like it's like a sort of, and I think this probably worked for you too, where it's
Yeah.
like the guy's a good guy, like he understands his role, whatever that role is going to be. I want my young quarterback around him, right? Like there's real value in that. And that's something I see with Will Howard, where it's like he may develop to be a starter in 5 years. He may be a career backup, but he feels to me like the kind of guy you're going to want to have on your team,
Yeah. I could see that.
whatever capacity it is. And I think that's important in quarterback, right?
Definitely 100%. I mean, look, you're right. Josh, made a career out of it. I made a career out of that. Ryan
Chase Daniel, I
Fitzpatrick,
think.
Chase Daniel. I mean,
Yeah.
those are valuable. Now, you never go into the league thinking like I want to be a guy who they keep around because I'm a good guy and I can play decent. You're coming in with aspirations to be a starting
Yeah.
quarterback, all of those things. And we talked about fit. I could see Will Howard being a guy who goes to a good team, maybe sits a year, 2 years, eventually works his way up and becomes a starting quarterback. That's what I see him as. I don't think you're drafting him with the intentions of him playing as a rookie. But look at what Brock Purdy was able to do in a
Yep.
great situation, and now he's become a mainstay of that team. So I get those types of feelings from him. And then when I watch the film, in the biggest moments, the game wasn't too big for him. He made big time throw after big time throw. I'm sure a lot of teams wish Jeremiah Smith was draft eligible right now because that guy is just
Oh,
absolutely ridiculous. But
we could do a podcast on
oh
him.
my
Yeah.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
And but look, I have it's one of those things for me. I have a feeling about the guy based on seeing the way he conducts himself and then seeing the way he played when it came to the biggest games on the college stage. So those are two guys that I'm definitely keeping my eye on. And then the kid from Missouri, Brady Cook had an interesting day at the combine, super athletic. And then when I started watching film with him, I was like, this guy looks like someone I remember. And Ryan Tannehill came into my head. And so I
Okay.
would say if you're going to be able to get a guy maybe second, third day who turns into a Ryan Tannehill type player, a guy who barely played even any quarterback at the collegiate level, and then
Yep.
became a mainstay starter for Tennessee, Miami, I think that would be a guy that I'm a little intrigued about as well.